The business revolution starts today. We stop the burden. We found a better way.
Welcome, or welcome back to some of you, to The Business Revolution, the podcast where we tend to rewrite the rules of business for the green transition and for a sustainable future. I'm Mick, your co-host.
And I'm Cherry.
And I'm Alan. And we're your guides on this journey to explore the intersection of business, sustainability, and positive change.
Each episode will bring you inspiring conversations with experts, entrepreneurs, change makers who are proving that sustainability isn't just good for the planet, it's good for business as well.
We do our best to uncover innovative solutions and good practical strategies for businesses, and we're always on the lookout for new trends that will shape the future of sustainable business.
And whether you're a seasoned CEO, a budding entrepreneur, or simply curious about how to make a difference, you've come to the right place.
So grab a cup of your favorite sustainable brew, settle in and get ready to be inspired. This is the Business Revolution.
And in this episode, we're going to explore how a coaching-led approach can drive sustainability progress in a company. And not only that, it can also empower the employees and strengthen their connection to their organizations.
And to help us explore this fascinating topic, we're joined by our colleague from Net Zero Map, Dr. Jon Rhodes.
Jon is a highly accomplished chartered psychologist with a proven track record in empowering individuals and teams across diverse fields, from Olympic athletes to business executives. He's the co-founder of Imagery Coaching and co-developer of the groundbreaking functional imagery training approach. Jon, welcome to the Business Revolution.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Great intro. I know, yeah. It feels like I'm busy. It feels like I'm busy a lot, but I suppose I have been.
You've got your PhD in psychology in the University of Plymouth and you're doing all of your other businesses? I think so.
I think I'm just curious. I'm curious I'm of service. I like to support people. I like to support organizations. And I think that behavior change is a fascinating thing we talk about a lot. In industry, in sport, in the military, and even at home, we talk about change. So I think it's a good word. It can also be a naughty word as well. So I think it's just navigating that with the right motivation in mind.
Yeah, it's a really relevant topic. Well, it always is, right? There's always change. So it's keeps us busy, keeps us employed in terms of the work that we do.
That's the truth, yeah. And it's interesting, because there are so many frameworks and things that exist within behavior change, but they're also unique to the situation, the circumstance, the time, the priorities, the purpose. All those things are all really important when you think about change, and we're all at different levels of readiness to change as well. So I think it's meeting the person where they are, figuring out what the best route is, and then supporting them or giving them a map, in our case, to really work through navigating change over time.
I think that's a good starting point. And I think, this is a question for both yourself, Jon, and Alan. And for our listeners who might not know, Alan and I are also partners in the Net Zero Map team, along with Jon and a couple of others. We're a collective of coaches and consultants, and we all have diverse backgrounds in psychology, sustainability, business, coaching, etc. But this might be a good starting point in terms of, you guys are the co-founders or started the journey. Tell us a little bit about the MAP model and where that came from.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, it's thinking about the problem first. So, we've all been in organizations where we've struggled to make a change. We've all, been in organizations where the leaders are perhaps the issue. We've all been in organizations where we have lots of information around change, but there's no real motivation to act. So we all know that, right? We have this kind of inbuilt human way that, being these change makers are really important, but actually as humans, we struggle to adapt and to change quite often. We like our routine and our habits. So yeah, I suppose our problem to start off with was really figuring out, where people are in their journey of change. Do they actually care about net zero? Do they care about being sustainable in their behaviors? Some people do not. Some organizations do not. So it's meeting people where they currently are, and then working with them to really focus on intrinsic motivation to then, I suppose, to kind of pollinate these ideas within groups, so then people can kind of gain traction around why it's important to you first, to you as an individual, and then why it's important for us as an organization, and what can we do beyond the organization as well, thinking about that kind of global change or community change, and then national change and global change. So we're looking at all those different levels, but my interest is really again around, can you measure it? Can we do something about it? Can we retest it? And so what? Can we actually have an impact over time? And do people show behavioral intentions and actions as well?
So what's the answers to all that? I mean, I'm really curious now.
Yeah. I mean, it's an age-old answer. The age-old answer is emotion drives behavior change, not information. And we could talk about Aristotle and all these historical figures and why it was so important, but we kind of forget it over time, and we go back to what we think we need to do. But it's really an inside-out process of behavior change, which starts with values for us. So as a group, we kind of say, look, if you don't know your values and you're not aware of your values, then that's where we start. But also, can you show me on your calendar where your values show up? So how are you putting your values into action? And so we would do that with teams and we'd say, where is it? If you value curiosity, for example, that's one of your core driving factors. Where is it? Where is your time in the week where you can live this kind of, can be curious and allow yourself this ability to mind wander and to be creative? And people might say, no, well, I haven't really got that. So you're not living your values. So we started with this intrinsic factor around values, and intrinsic motivation is really focused on, my purpose, my why, but also being connected to others. So I need to have this ability to connect, to feel related, to feel like we're all in this together, and there's some kind of plan over time as well. We've created this kind of process, I suppose, in a way, which is the map. So your own personal meaning, what does it mean to you? Awareness, what can you do? Are you aware of some of the kind of behavioral intentions? And then purpose, so what? So we look at this kind of map approach, and through lots of dialogues, through lots of discussions with individuals and then with teams, we can really start to unlock motivation and unlock future potential around sustained behavior change.
So what does the map look like today? Is it a pamphlet? Is it a course that you go through? What is it in concrete terms?
Perfect. That's a great question, because we are developing concrete materials to be able to obviously disseminate our approach to everyone. So initially there is a research paper, which is kind of where we started, which explains exactly what the processes are, the steps are for the map. Now, of course, every coach in the world will have their own philosophy, their own approaches. So we kind of guide you through the certain things you will need to do within the academic paper, but also we are developing courses as well to teach the process. This starts really with person-centered communication, this kind of empathy-based connection from the inside out, and thinking about why is it important to you? And if it's not, well, why not? There must be a reason why. And often we have difficult conversations with people around change, and they may not be ready to change. It may not be the right time. With every goal, the other thing that we use a lot as well, especially from my background, is looking at how your imagination plays a key role in this process. Because every goal that you have, every conversation that you foresee, you will use imagination in certain ways. So we support individuals and teams to really plan through in depth and detail. We call it multisensory imagery. Plan through different scenarios, plan through different conversations, plan through what if we didn't do it, what if we did do it, and we get them to hypothesize in great depth and detail, and then formulate plans over time. But that's a course that we're developing that we aim to cascade out. And we've got a book coming out as well this year. So there's lots of resources where people can then pick up the model.
And I understand both Alan and Thierry are part of that book. You've also contributed?
Yeah. The team we've all contributed. I have to give a lot to Jon. He's certainly been the key person behind it. So credit where it's due there. But we've all added a little bit in there. But I'd like to add a little bit to what Jon said and sort of share it from a different lens as well on that understanding ourselves and our own values. As we were going through the program, we were able to see, it was almost like holding up the mirror to help that people could see themselves they're sharing what their values were, and then they were able to actually unpack what that really meant to them. It's sort of reiterating what Jon said, really, but where the strength of that was, and I just want to emphasize it, I think, is when people were using those imagery, all the tools that Jon's just mentioned, it's just seeing the lights come on sometimes. Some of those people who weren't necessarily ready for change were suddenly able to go, wow, light bulb, ding. And now we can actually, I want to change now. Or in some other cases, it was how the alignment was there. It's like, okay, I want to change for this reason. You want to change for that reason. But now we can actually see we've got different reasons to go down the same path, or at least in similar paths, that we can build on that and want to. And that's a really powerful word, want to actually play around in that space. And it was a big driver.
Something I've noticed, and maybe you would comment on this, either of you three, about sustainability, is that we humans, we tend to do what our neighbors are doing, or what, people around us are doing. If we stand in an elevator, it's as simple as that, if there are 3 people in there before us, we'll stand in the same direction as they do, and so on. So we are these sort of social animals. And how does that work in a company? Because I would think that it's not just about individuals. It's actually about finding a way to get all these individuals to do something where they feel they're together about it. Or am I wrong?
Well, you're totally right. You're spot on, Nick, as well. Because I think that we're using a lot of approaches in what we do. Like we are starting with you as an individual, because you own your own choices. So we empower people to really have the knowledge and the motivation to own those moments of being more climate aware or sustainable in their actions. Then hopefully that cascade, which is what's happened. One person has a knock-on effect on another person. So yes, we're using, you mentioned at the start, functional imagery training, which is the whole, how do you imagine this happening? We're using nudge approaches to these areas as well. We're thinking about how small, behaviors that you might do will have an impact on other people. There are infographics, there's meetings going on. Groups are running projects around sustainable behaviors. So it is a individual shift related to other people that connects and draws in. It's like a magnet that draws in interest. And we have lots in there as well. Speak to Alan's part and what his focus was really on systems-led thinking and systems approaches. We have lots in there as well, of course, about systems thinking, and the way that I see it, and I'm just going to kind of freestyle here in my weird world of seeing things, is I see it as like a water system, right? So you have your national board where your water comes from, where it's all stored in the reservoir or whatever, and it kind of filters through all the housing and it comes down to what you see. You see the tap at the end, right? And so quite often, if the system is not working, people generally say it's the person at the top not doing their job, and they replace the tap. And that's what you see. Well, actually what we are doing is we're impacting all the small systems that you can't see, all the small infrastructures, to stop the drips throughout the organization, so that's a very sustainable and efficient system. And that when the tap comes out, you're coming out with the most amount of momentum and motivation and intention as well.
I love that. It's brilliant. And I think it also reminds me of what you've shared there, especially the beginning of that part. Remind me of one of the very commonly used frames or terms that's used when you talk about team work. It's like there's no I in team. And where that systemic thing plays in is that there is an I in team, as long as the I understands that they're part of the team. And that's another way of reframing what's said earlier as well. And so when you've got all of these pieces in the team, I'll change to a game, I know soccer or rugby or any game where you've got a team sport, is understand that, oh yeah, I'm part of that. And yeah, we want to score the goal. I might be the defender, but it's what I'm doing is helping the whole team play to achieve the score, even though it doesn't look like it. You start to have that realization of that it isn't as obvious. It's just another version of what Jon shared with the water, really. It's like, it's not that obvious flow. And so that systemic thinking mindset is a really powerful addition to our toolkit.
Cherry, how do you see it in terms of the work that you're doing also as a coach? How is it going to work for you to go out with this map?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the organizations and clients that I'm working with will see a lot of value in that, because what often happens is, using Jon's analogy, we'll fix the tap, we'll try and fix rather than thinking about well, what's actually happening. And I think any change requires, all the parts to be working. And that's part of that culture of transformation work that I'm often involved in, and I've seen it happen over the last 2 decades with safety in high risk industries. And you've got to take a multi-layered approach. And it's the same in sustainability. People need to have awareness of, why we're actually doing this within an organization, but also what's my personal connection to it. Because if there isn't a personal connection, then it just becomes compliance.
And so you imagine, I'm just going to add to what Cherry is saying, bring it in as an example within the program when we ran it. You've got people's personal connection. It might be, I don't care about sustainability, but I do want my kids to have a future where they can play in the park and they're going to see the birds fly by. Cool. So that's my motivator. And so that's another one of the sort of scenarios that we saw in the program too, which obviously we want to emphasize and build on.
I think also on that, I'm just thinking about around net zero. Net zero can also be a demotivating word. Like, it's difficult to get to net zero. Some organizations will see a net zero program and say, that's not for us because we're aerospace. Like, it's not for us. We have companies that come to us and say, okay, well, we're not actively engaged in net zero, but we want to learn more and we want to be really more climate aware, but also we want to have some kind of, we know that we need to do better at what we're doing to be more sustainable. So I think the way that you brand things, I know that we're focusing on net zero for us in the MAP area at the moment, but the way that organizations approach this kind of training, the important things with us always is having a model that we can use rigorously. That's the same, doesn't matter who we go to, it's reliable, which I think in the coaching world is hit and miss quite often with the approaches, which is why there's such a high proportion of coaching frameworks that aren't effective. So what we know is that this is hugely effective as a program. It's replicable, and it starts with understanding the client in front of us. So we may have to use different language. It may not be all about net zero. It could be about sustainable behaviors. It could be about just connecting with employees. So the branding evolves and changes with the meaning, which is the end part of our model.
Now, businesses are typically founded and run because people want to make money. Where does money come into the picture here?
Everywhere. Profitability. We are big also on return on investment. So don't just think it's, a consultancy going in and doing a few sessions. Return on investment for us is huge. And what we see when we do these approaches is that teams become more productive. They are more proactive. And yes, it will think it's outlay initially of monies to get coaches to go and work with teams. Yes, but it has a knock-on effect on the profitability of organizations based on more effective communication, retention of staff. Staff feel more valued and they retain. And there's a high degree of satisfaction as well. When we do feedback, we do interviews with people beyond our calls, they are generally more connected and definitely have a higher satisfaction in their job.
And I'll add to an extra dimension on top of that, which we saw and was emphatically proven, but we had demonstration examples of people in leadership roles who were showing more ability to solve problems. People that we always think, they're high in the chain or wherever they may be. And the effect is we're all human, but they unlocked an ability to become better problem solvers through the collaboration and all the other things that Jon's mentioned. And when you see that in there, that's where the productivity gains were. And I think it'd be worthwhile wrapping back up on how the research, what the results of the research, the measurable results show is we were comparing the coaching approach with a training approach. Now, I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but the people who went through training, equivalent amount of time and effort spent on training, they didn't actually become better problem solvers. They had more knowledge, but not knowing how to use it any better. What we enabled was unlocking that ability to think through problems and think. If you put the two together, knowledge and that capability, we got a 7% improvement in cognitive ability. If you translate as a rough guess, let's say that's 1 day in a fortnight, roughly, of extra productivity. That's pretty powerful.
Just to add to that, one last thing I promise is, and I'm not going to sit on the fence like Alan. I'm going to give you the researchers' this is significantly more effective than one of the best climate initiative approaches out there. So we have data that shows not only did our cohort have a better organizational belonging compared to a control group, but also they were more actively engaged and their climate initiatives were ongoing beyond the project. So beyond the project is finished and we did a review, and they're still climate active, they're still generating new projects and ideas to really engage more employees. So it is significantly more effective.
I want to amplify the word belonging, because the measures that we used are based on the inner development goals, and there's 5 dimensions in there. But talking to the organizations which were involved in the research, one of the things that came up with them is we want greater level of belonging. John mentioned it earlier, the staff retention and all of that, but this was tangible. This was something that they really sought, and they got what they asked for. So that was a big one for industry.
So just for my understanding here, and I think also for our listeners' understanding, so the net zero map, is that a tool for the management, for the leaders, or is it a tool for the individuals, the employees, so to say, at floor level? Or is it both?
Yeah, it's for the coaches. So it's for the coaches to go in and deliver in a systematic way through various steps. And then the outcome is the acting, like what they do, the behavior is the outcome, the projects are the outcome for the employees. Yes, they feel more connected. They have a better ability to problem solve, better cognitive skills, better connection with other people, a better collaboration, and better understanding, like self-awareness is the big thing. If you're great leaders, have a good self-awareness, and that's what this program does.
So I'm just going to ask some basic questions, because what's the difference between a coach and a consultant, and who is the coach working with? Is that the management?
So a consultant will go in and they'll do, in my eyes anyway, it's about contracting. So I always think of it as contracting. Depends on how many sessions you go in and do, what the problem is. Often for what we do is we'll stay with the organisation beyond the contract, and they'll say to us, can we go again, because this is great. Coaching, in my eyes, is a mixture of one-to-one based sessions and also group sessions. Now, group coaching is very, very difficult to do well. People do it, they don't do it very well. So coaches have the ability to go in and coach individuals and teams. Yes, are they consultants? Kind of. Depends on how they're contracted. Generally, we would stay with the organisation beyond and we'll do check-ins. But for this initial project, this was all research-based for these organisations, just for the data to try and see whether this approach actually works. So I would see it as more of a research model than a coaching model, but it is a coaching model in my eyes. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
I won't correct you. I'll add to you. And I think it is situational, like you called out there. It's in your world. Yeah, it's from the academic sort of side. But for me, for the background in IT consultancy world, where you go in to solve a problem. And it's back to what Cherry mentioned earlier. It's like, which tap do you need to fix? Go and fix that tap. Yeah, but the pipe's bulging over here. No, don't fix that. We want the tap fixed. And that's where consulting often falls over, because it can often be just that short term, get this done. But adding to that, I think it is very situational. So John shared his view. And I'm not disagreeing. I'm 100% agreeing. It's just very different. Depends where you're playing.
Yeah. And putting my coaching hat on, because I do both, I think coaching is more of a transformational process. So, by creating that meaning and awareness and connecting to people's individual purpose, and also at a team level, you can create the conditions for transformation.
There's probably something in there about accountability as well. I feel like consultants generally aren't accountable, whereas coaches absolutely are accountable. I mean, it's just my perception. I generally feel accountable when I'm going in and doing sessions. If I'm a consultant going in and doing a one-off, I'm doing a one-off. I'm not going to have a great deal of impact. Hopefully there'll be people out there who can take lessons on board and evolve. But coaching happens over multiple sessions, and there is accountability, and there's usually return on investment as well.
Accountability is becoming a very big word after what's happening in American politics, I think. And it will probably also influence how we do business.
And I think I think that's a good point. And I think that plays into that point that we've just been discussing about the differences, because even when I've been running, and this is where my butt comes from, even when I've been involved in transformation work, I've been expected to be the solution more often than not, even when it's not really what should be expected. I'm not saying that's all the case, but not at all. And that's, I think the situation is, why are they bringing in the consultants? And what you just raised there, Mick, is, I think, a scenario where a lot of times the consultants are brought in because somebody wants the work to be pointed at somebody else. They can take the blame. They can be attributable, and therefore they don't want to coach there because that means they've got to think for themselves and they've got to make the call. So it also depends on how strong and brave the leaders are who are bringing us in to help them along this journey.
That's a valid point. Now, what's going to happen in the next months? What's the plan for the net zero map?
We actually have some lunch and learn sort of sessions happening across 3 continents in March. So in Europe, sort of Europe EMEA time zone, as well as the Americas time zone and in APAC. So you can head over to our website and register just to learn more and deep dive into the net zero map framework, and also meet the rest of the team as well.
And when you say the website, it is?
It's netzeromap.org.
And we mustn't forget another event which we're running. We've got the book launch. As Jon mentioned earlier, we've been written a chapter in a book around the inner development goals and stories from these sorts of things that we've been doing.
Thank you very much about, this was all about the net zero map and the framework and how people can use that to transform their businesses into a more sustainable business.
So just remember, the revolution doesn't end here. It's up to each and every one of us to take this knowledge and inspiration from today's episode and turn that into action.
So whether it's implementing sustainable practices in your own business or advocating for change in your community, every step counts towards building a better future.
And don't forget to visit our website as well, businessrevolution.earth, for more resources. And you can also go back to the older episodes and see the ways that you can get involved.
And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, rate it, let us know how you're feeling, and review it. We would love to hear what your thoughts are, your feedback, and it helps us get a better job.
And thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. Hopefully together we can revolutionize the way we do business and create a world that's sustainable for generations to come.
Stay tuned for more insights, inspiration, and actionable steps to reshape the way we do business.
So until next time, keep innovating, keep inspiring, and keep pushing for positive change for a brighter tomorrow. I'm Alan.
I'm Mick.
And this is Cherry signing off. The business revolution starts with you.
Now the business revolution starts with you. The business revolution starts today. The business revolution starts today. So plant the seeds, let's ignite the spark. A better world, green light in the dark. With every step, with every move, the green transition's here to prove, yes we can change this world.